Good morning, and welcome to the March 14th Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. My name is John Motter. I'm a member of this church and also on its worship committee. Our pastor, the Reverend Jack Donovan, is off today, and so the worship committee is responsible for the service. A UU congregation is a place for all souls, all ages, genders, loves, colors, abilities, struggles, education, beliefs, questions, and hopes. Our congregations are devoted to promoting spiritual growth and a caring community, learning from all peoples and from our own life experiences. So may we learn much during the third week of this year's Women's History Month. Should you celebrate St. Patrick's Day on Wednesday, please keep in mind that it is also Sleep Awareness Week. Otherwise, on Thursday, you may not fully appreciate 3.14159 as we honor it on Pi Day. A couple of things to note about viewing our services on YouTube. Closed captioning is available on most devices and operating systems. You'll find the CC icon on the lower right portion of your screen. If you are watching the premiere live, then you can use the chat feature in the window next to the video. If you are viewing it at a later time, you can still read the chat by clicking on the Show Chat Replay button to the right of the video. I hope that all of you are watching will find something that helps you grow both spiritually, individually, and as members of a greater community. Your presence is needed and wanted as we work towards building a blessed community. Finally, I'd like to thank Ruth, John, James, Barbara, Alan, and Jack for contributions of word, music, production, and spirit. And now my mom, Ruth Bentley, who will light our chalice.
Greetings. I'm Ruth Bentley and a member of this church. To begin our service, we light our chalice now as a symbol of our church search for truth and meaning, our shared communion, and our growing light of understanding and caring. Join me, if you will, in the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Just over a year ago, on March 6, 2020, we held our last in-person service at the church. I'm not sure that anyone could have fully imagined that a year later we'd still be meeting virtually. The fact that we have continued to congregate is a testament to the strength of our community. It hasn't always been easy, but it's probably always been adventurous. More and more members are getting vaccinated. We are slowly working our way towards the day that we can safely meet again in person, and I do look forward to that time. A year ago, Dave Mapp and Amy Putkonen shared their journeys with us, so it seems appropriate that Barbara Archibald and Alan Froelich share their journeys on the one-year anniversary of our virtual services. In a short while, you'll hear their moving journeys and how the commonality of their journeys has forged a warm bond and friendship amongst Alan, Barbara, and Tom. In the toughest of times, seeds can still grow into beautiful plants if they are tended to and cared for. Now's our time for all ages. How many of you have learned a poem or speech that you gave in one of your classes? Well, I had to do it a number of times while I was growing up, but really the only poem I remember is the one I learned as a second grader. Miss Hallhorse was my teacher, and she was one of my favorite ones. And so maybe that's why I can still recite the poem. So here it goes. I never saw a purple cow. I never hoped to see one. But I can tell you anyhow, I'd rather see than be one. Now, it seems like just a silly little poem. But what does it really say? It says that for some reason, nobody would want to be a purple cow. And that just doesn't make sense to me. Of course, all cows I've ever met have been brown or white or black or maybe spotted. So I suppose I'd be pretty surprised if I ever met a purple one. But does that mean that there is something wrong with being a purple cow? Think of all the beautiful things that are the color purple. Violets are purple. The purple woven into this scarf that I used for a Christmas present for my niece has beautiful purple in it. And then one of my favorite ties, it's got different shades of purple. It's got greens and yellows and oranges and blues. It really is one of my favorites and one that I wear on special occasions. So, do you have anything that's purple? Maybe a ribbon, a shirt like mine, some tennis shoes. Do you know some people who've even dyed their hair purple? I bet you do. So if we like purple so much, then why would we not want to be a purple cow? Maybe it's because we've never met a purple cow. Or maybe we don't think the purple cow is as good as us, just because cows aren't supposed to be purple. That's pretty stupid, isn't it? So here's what I decided I was going to do the day I meet a purple cow. I'm going to get to know that cow and look for all the beautiful things about that cow. And then maybe I'll learn that we have a lot of things in common. Maybe I'll listen and I'll learn about some of the things that make us a little bit different. Because in the end, a cow is a cow. And I bet what most cows want is just to have a good life on the farm and not be on a hamburger bun. This morning's meditation is taken from the UU Worship Web and is by Barbara Stevens. Please make yourself comfortable as I say these words. Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence. The silence that soothes and comforts the wounded. The silence that yields insights into heart and soul. The silence that calms. The silence that listens. The silence that speaks. The silence that renews. Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence. And now our anthem, On the Day We Are Together Again.
On the day we are together again, on the day we are together again, I will pull you in close like a hoop with no end. On the day we are together again, we will share the same table again. We will share the same table again. I will pass you the salt, the candlelight will bend when we eat at the same table again.
We will walk round the block hand in hand. We will walk round the block hand in hand. We will stop for a snack at the taco truck stand. We will walk round the block hand in hand.
Someday we will go back to work. Someday we will go back to work. May we be among people who respect our worth. Someday we will go back to work.
I will help the strangers I meet. I will
There are a few announcements. This afternoon at 4 o'clock, we'll show this service in our church picnic area on a big TV screen. It's a great chance to see one another if you're comfortable in person with masks and stay socially distanced. Please let Sarah Craig know if you're planning to come. The announcement with her email is on our Infonet newsletter. Please email Pastor Jack your phone number anytime to talk if you'd like to learn more about our religious tradition, or if you just want to talk about some things that you might be struggling with in these hard times with the pandemic. In accordance, of course, with publicly distanced pandemic protocols, he can also meet you on the church's open-air front portico. His contact information is posted at the conclusion of our service, and it's also on our webpage. Please check out our webpage or Infonet for additional announcements, such as the Wednesday reading groups or Sunday morning discussions. There's a lot going on despite the pandemic. And now, Pastor Jack with Joys and Concerns.
Good morning, all. If you have a particular joy or concern that you would like to share this morning, you can type it into the side panel of your screen, or you can wait until the coffee hour and share then, or do both. And if you'd like your joy or concern to be announced at a Sunday service, please let me know, or Susan Benor or Dave Mapp, the co-chairs of our worship committee. Thanks to all who were able to attend Reverend Nick Filson's ordination. It was a joyous event and really wonderfully done. Also, welcome as a joy to our newest member who joined UU St. Pete this week, Matt Kowitz. Matt first became part of a UU congregation across the state of Florida at Ormond Beach as part of the youth group there about 25 years ago. He has lived around the country as a visual artist for 2 major design companies and has recently moved to St. Pete. Those are 2 joys. On a sad note, our office administrator, Kathy Norris, has decided to step down from her position here. Kathy has been an absolutely wonderful administrator in our office, taking on all kinds of tasks with great graciousness. We will miss her presence and her professionalism in the office a lot. Most sadly, our hearts are with Sue Price at the death of her husband and wonderful companion and friend to many of us, UU St. Pete member Roy Price. Roy passed away at St. Anthony's Hospital this week after a long bout of illness. Sue and some very close friends were present with Roy at the time. Roy sang in our choir, and he played the trombone in local bands and orchestras over the last number of years. Being with Roy, as many will testify, was always uplifting. He brought smiles to many hearts. We'll miss him greatly, and we offer all the love and support we have to Sue, who has cared for so many of us. Please stay in touch with one another. It makes all the difference for our lives and as a congregation. And anytime the concerns of life seem too much, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I'll be happy to meet with you on our front portico at the church, out in the open air. Thank you all for being here today, and now our first reading.
Our reading comes from author and Unitarian Universalist author Ray Bradbury. Everyone must leave something behind when he dies, my grandfather said. A child, or a book, or a painting, or a house, or a wall built, or a pair of shoes made, or a garden planted, something your hand touched in some way, so your soul has somewhere to go when you die. And when people look at that tree or that flower you planted, you're there. It doesn't matter what you do, he said, so long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it into something that's like you after you take your hands away. The difference between the man who just cuts lawns and a real gardener is in the touching, he said. The lawn cutter might just as well not have been there at all. The gardener will be there a lifetime.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart.
To keep our congregation thriving, let's remember our connections to one another and not forget our offerings to support the means to those connections. As you listen to our brief offering music, please click on the eye in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to make a contribution. You can also donate through the Gift Plus app via our web page under the Giving tab, or by sending a check to the church office. Thank you.
Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of light, come to me, come to me.
And now, Barbara and Alan will share their journeys.
Good morning. I'm Alan Froelich. Barbara Archibald and I will be presenting our journeys together, as seemed fitting given some similarities in our family backgrounds and also a close friendship that has developed among Barbara, her husband Tom, and myself during this past pandemic year. My wife Lenore and I retired to St. Petersburg in September 2018. I connected with UU St. Pete at the beginning of 2020. For the first time in my life, I felt at home in an organized religious setting.
Hello, I'm Barbara Archibald. I've been a member at UUSP with my husband Tom for about 5 or 6 years. Pastor Jack was the big draw for us in joining UUSP. He was such a kind and deeply thoughtful leader. We met Alan about a year ago when he joined. We soon found out that Alan and I had many similarities in our backgrounds. One was that our parents were refugees from Hitler. My parents were both Jewish. My father was German, my mother Hungarian. They left Budapest in 1938 when my father went to work for a French company. and they were in Paris when the Germans invaded in May 1940. My dad was taken to a detention camp and then encouraged to join the French Foreign Legion in Casablanca. My mother was hidden by French peasants on their farm in the south of France. Eventually, after a few close calls and lucky breaks, in April 1941, they made their way to America.
My mother was a German Jew, a young child when Hitler came to power in 1933. She escaped with her family in 1938, staying one step ahead of the Germans. My father was a Yugoslavian Jew who was the only member of his immediate family not to be interned and killed in a concentration camp. After the war, my parents both made their way to the United States, my mother in 1946 and my father in 1949.
Another similarity is that we are both first-generation Americans. My journey began with a lucky break. I wasn't conceived for the first 12 years of my parents' marriage. That would have had me born undeniably Jewish in the middle of Nazi-dominated Europe. Instead, I was conceived in peaceful Paterson, New Jersey. My father worked as a chemist. My mother was enjoying American life, even if she didn't quite understand it. For example, she thought she was back in Europe when she heard about oranges for juice. And then my first great misfortune struck. I was still in utero when my father was killed in an industrial accident, and I've missed him all my life. My mother remarried, and my parents sent me to Hebrew school. It was important to them that I knew I was Jewish and how to practice Judaism. I learned the prayers and loved the melodies. It always amazed me that you could walk into a synagogue anywhere in the world and hear the same prayers and know when to bend your knees and when to bow your head. The first duty of a Jew, they say, is to love God, and I grew up feeling his presence.
My parents met and married in Denver, Colorado, where in 1956 I was born, the first of 3 children. My parents strongly identified as Jewish, as do I, but it is more of an ethnic cultural identification than a religious one. When I was young, we belonged to a temple, attended Sunday school, and celebrated some Jewish holidays. However, Sunday school and the temple did not feel meaningful or comfortable to me. Shortly after my bar mitzvah, we convinced my parents to allow us to ski on Sundays, thus effectively ending my association with organized religion until very recently. My parents were politically liberal, strong supporters of civil rights, and early opponents of the Vietnam War. They opposed any type of prejudice and supported the right of any human being to live as free, rewarding, and secure a life as possible. They understood at a gut level that accidents of birth and of on which side of an arbitrary border one resides determine much of one's life's possibilities. My parents both lived at times as undocumented or illegally documented residents of various countries in their struggle to escape and survive.
I went to Barnard College in New York City and got married to the boy across the street, who wanted to be a doctor, of course. We moved to Texas, where he went to medical school, and I finished my last year of college. I taught French and German and got pregnant. Being Jewish was less and less important, but we were given a sharp reminder of our ancestry when our first child was born with a genetic disease called Tay-Sachs, which occurs in ingrown communities like Ashkenazi Jews. Somewhere back in time, several hundred years ago, the mutation had occurred in the Jewish Pale of Settlement in Western Russia. Rick and I must have had a common ancestor. Every pregnancy of mine would have a 1 in 4 chance of producing a child with the fatal disease. I was devastated, first because I adored my firstborn, Mara Leilani, but also because I wanted several children and felt it was my duty in some unspoken way to have more children. My mother, who was very much in my life during Mara's illness, yearned for them too. Then a miracle occurred. Of all the genetic diseases, Tay-Sachs was the first one to be diagnosed in utero in the early 1970s, when I was still in my 20s. A researcher discovered a way of extracting amniotic fluid from a pregnant woman and analyzing it to see if the fetus had cells containing the sign of Tay-Sachs. I was able to have 3 more children, Miley, Tamra, and David, and sunshine re-entered my life. They grew up. Tammy and David had bar and bat mitzvahs, not for the purest of reasons, but they did the work. Tammy even allowed me to chant a prayer with her that I had sung at my own confirmation. I was so very proud of the kids, but also proud of myself that I hadn't let a stitch in the tapestry drop.
Like many Jewish and other immigrants to this country, my parents strongly believed that education was the key to material security as well as to leading a rich, fulfilling life. I fulfilled their immigrants' parents' dream by attending Harvard and then later becoming a doctor, like my father's father, who had been killed by the Nazis. I feel privileged to have been able to pursue a profession that allowed me to apply my education in service of people's health and well-being. I worked primarily in underserved settings, such as a public hospital, a neighborhood health center, and a veterans hospital. Choices influenced by my parents' values and life histories.
Ricky, my husband, left my life, and I saw the importance of being able to support myself, and so I went to law school. Tom entered my life, and I had to decide whether I could love someone who didn't share my heritage. But it was difficult to resist him. I had never felt the kind of support that he gave me. He encouraged me with law school and later with the practice of law. He helped me with all my life's burdens, and I tried to help him. We blended our families, his 2 daughters and my 3 kids, and finished raising them together. We took a teaching about marriage to heart, that the relationship between husband and wife is the third entity in a marriage and needs attention and commitment. I practiced law for 25 years in California and in the Virgin Islands with an emphasis on civil rights cases. The one thing missing from our lives, Tom's and mine, was a shared spiritual path. The Hebrew prayers did not move him as they did me, and I understood that. That is what led us to become UUers. UU connects instead of divides, and we felt that last missing dimension. It doesn't move me so much emotionally as Judaism does, but it appeals to my full self. 6 of the 7 principles really do cover my lives and my beliefs, and they are beautiful. The one I had little experience with and which I have come to honor and cherish as a UUer is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation. To me, this means listening to the people in our congregation with sympathy and understanding as a friend that you've known for many years. This led Tom and me to Alan, with whom we formed a very special relationship. And Alan has helped me understand certain things about my past and about my parents' experiences during World War II, which influenced my childhood so much. And with Alan, we can practice being UU-ish and Jewish.
I was lucky to have a long, loving, and fulfilling marriage until Lenore's death early last year, shortly after I connected with UU St. Pete, and shortly before the pandemic shutdown. Lenore, more than I, had previously found ways to pursue her spiritual side. I never lost my identity as a Jew, but until connecting with UU St. Pete, did not as an adult participate in any type of religious observance. After retiring, I felt more strongly the desire to find a compatible spiritual community. I was drawn to UU, but a barrier was that I associated church with Christianity. This word is still a hard one for me, and I notice that I try instead to use congregation whenever possible. A couple of things I think help explain the timing of my decision to take the plunge. First, as a retiree and newcomer to St. Pete, I was looking for community, and particularly a community of people with similar values. Second, Lenore was struggling with health problems and emotional challenges. I hoped that a stronger spiritual grounding would help me cope and come to terms with it. When Lenore died shortly afterward, my new connection with UU St. Pete and Pastor Jack turned out to be a fortuitous blessing. Hard as Lenore's death was to bear, I can only imagine how much harder if not for Jack's kindness and wisdom. I also found solace and growth in the community and values provided by UU. The concept of a religious or spiritual community that has no dogma, that is open to any belief or non-belief, that draws on all religious and scientific disciplines for meaning and justice, that strives for acceptance and inclusivity and the concept of a larger community in which our goal is to help one another, it all made so much sense to me. When Lenore's death was followed shortly by pandemic isolation, my growing connections with UU became even more important. Pastor Jack continued to support me when I was in the depths of despair. A couple of months in, Tom Archibald reached out to me, we met, and they invited me over for my first non-solo meal in a month. I felt an added bond when I discovered that Barbara was also a child of Holocaust refugees. At our now weekly Friday night dinners on their porch, with its beautiful view of the bay, we light the Jewish Sabbath candles and sing the blessing. We take turns cooking, trying out new recipes on each other. The food, camaraderie, and discussion are highlights of my week. I'm struck at the irony that joining a church has allowed me to connect with my Judaism in a new and more meaningful way. During an exceedingly difficult year, UU St. Pete, Pastor Jack, Barbara and Tom, and all of you have been a big part of helping me keep going and to move forward. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Alan and Barbara, for sharing your journeys with us. These closing words, slightly adapted from the Reverend Leah Derlin Jones, seemed quite appropriate. Reverend Derlin Jones is a lifelong UU, serving as Minister of Faith Development at the UU congregation in Charlottesville, Virginia. For those who came before us, we offer gratitude and thanks. May their memories be a blessing. May we feel surrounded by their love. As we go forth from this time and place, let us be inspired by their courage, their wisdom, and their dreams. Let us honor them by doing the work of living boldly, loving mightily, and creating peace on earth. Blessed be. Now, I want to thank all of you for coming together this morning. Please stay safe and well throughout the week. We hope you can join us right after the service for Zoom Coffee Hour. The meeting information will be shown on the screen shortly. And now, my mom will extinguish the chalice.
And now, as our service ends, we pass the flame of our chalice lamp to each other as we say together, we extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world.